Say hello to a new friend on an old road. Take a 2-lane trip of memories into mysteries unknown. Come along for the ride. Jim Hinckley's America. Jim Hinckley's America.
Yeah, there's a little bit of music there from our friends Joe and Woody and Boys of the Road Crew. Always good to have some road trip inspiration or a theme song for your adventure. Just take a listen at roadcrew66.com. Hey, speaking of road trips, we got a great one planned today. I'm so grateful that Kathleen Hendrickson joined us this morning. One of my favorite places isn't quite on Route 66. It's within spitting distance. And the original Las Vegas. And Kathleen and her husband, Bill, have played such a big part in putting that town on the map. And it's also at the end of the beginning of one of my favorite drives, State Highway 104 from Tucumcari to Las Vegas. Hey, Kathleen, how are you this beautiful morning?
Good morning, Jim. Yeah, we're great over here. I wanted to thank you too for inviting me on your show. That was unexpected, and I'm always happy to talk about Las Vegas. It is my favorite town as well. It's in a unique town. We've lived in a lot of places, and no place is like Las Vegas.
No, it's this program has never been a Jim show. It's about fascinating people. It's the American story, and it's inspiring road trips. And you do both. You and your husband do both. You're a great American story about small town America, and it's about, to me, one of the most unique and fascinating towns in New Mexico.
I agree. Yes. Well, when my husband and I were thinking about where we wanted to live and thought about that's where we want to retire, we were living in the Middle East at the time. We were living in Kuwait. We were both from different places. We lived in Florida. I'm born and raised in Wisconsin. But we wanted to live in New Mexico. Bill fell in love with it when he was working out there. But I didn't want to live in Deming. That's where he was. And I liked the northern New Mexico, Northeast, Santa Fe, Albuquerque. Anyway, we drove around and we pulled into Las Vegas. And I turned to my husband and I said, this is it. He wanted to be in a community, a smaller town. And it just ticked all the boxes that we wanted. So we had a great experience, wonderful adventure, actually living in Las Vegas. And it was great.
I spent a lot of time down when I was a kid, and then again during my John Wayne period that I never outgrew. I worked a lot down around the Silver City, New Mexico country. And that country reminds me a bit of Las Vegas. But Las Vegas is in a class all its own. And until quite recently, I've always been amazed how undiscovered it was.
Well, it still is. And, I can travel around just New Mexico. I remember when I first moved there and I'd say, even in Santa Fe, and I'd say, well, I live in Las Vegas. And I said, oh, you came from Las Vegas. They always thought it was the other Las Vegas, the modern one in Nevada. I said, no, Little Las Vegas, New Mexico. So I always tell people I live in Las Vegas, New Mexico. I always put that NM after it because people, a lot of people still don't, they don't know about it. It is a little hidden gem, and it is like nowhere else. What I fell in love with, and I guess because I'm from Milwaukee, a lot of beautiful architecture, German, built homes, and all the immigrants that had come to that area and Victorians. And here we are driving around Las Vegas, and I'm like, oh my gosh, look at these beautiful big old Victorians. I've never seen this in New Mexico before. And it actually reminded me a little bit of my home. So that was another reason why we picked it. I felt like we're living in New Mexico where my husband really wanted to live. And we've got it's a different vibe there. It's a different feel. And you've got the two different sides of town, which I'll talk about in a little bit. The east side where are the Victorians, and then the west side, Old Town, where you've got the adobes and the territorial type homes. So it's got a great mix of architecture.
How many? I understand that they have the highest number of buildings on the National Register of Historic Places.
Yes, almost 1,000 actually. Over 900 of historical homes and buildings on the register. Yes, and you know why that is? That is because with a twist of fate, unfortunately, Las Vegas was not able to have the money to tear down those old buildings and homes and build new ones like they did in Albuquerque and other parts. And Las Vegas didn't have the money. It had gone into a depression. And so, like I said, twist of fate, all those buildings stood. And now we've got all these beautiful homes and buildings.
And this is a town of about, 12,000 people?
13,000.
And to have almost 1,000 historic buildings on the National Register. And there's probably another 1,000 that could be added pretty easy.
Well, I'm sure there aren't, they're not all on there. When I think per capita, being that there's only 13,000 people, I think there's probably more than any other city in the U.S., really. Being a small town to have that many, historic homes and buildings. So, and I wanted to mention to you before I forget, Jim, my husband reminded me that I met you way back when you gave a talk at the Plaza Hotel on Route 66. And when you contacted me, I thought, God, that name sounds familiar. And then Bill said, well, you met Jim. He was at the Plaza. He did a talk on Route 66. And of course, I remembered that then. And, I was, new into Las Vegas. I didn't know much about Route 66 other than that TV show I used to watch back in the 60s, I think. And so it was really, informative and it was interesting. So I don't remember how many years ago that was. Do you remember?
Yeah, it was about 3 years before the apocalypse. So that'd be like 2017, 2016, somewhere in there. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Your husband, Bill, he had facilitated that. And Bill and I had some interesting conversations. We entertained the thought of moving to Las Vegas. It's a long story, but some things intervened and prevented that. But Route 66... I realize Las Vegas isn't on Route 66, but it's within spitting distance.
Right.
And
I think it ended at Romero. It went to Romeroville.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just a few miles, and the pre-37 alignment. And I'm sure that Route 66 travelers spent a lot of time going to Las Vegas. I know National Old Trails Road travelers did. And Las Vegas has what the Route 66 traveler is looking for. And as a bonus, like I say, Highway 104 from Tucumcari to Las Vegas, my gosh, that is one of the top drives in the state.
Yeah, I've done that drive also. I'll tell you a quick story about, talking about folks coming on Route 66. I was new in Las Vegas. I was working, and Bill was still in Kuwait working, actually. I was living in Las Vegas on my own. I lived there for about a year and a half because we bought that big old Victorian and we had to renovate it. And I came back from Kuwait and I oversaw the renovations. So I wanted to do something, maybe part time. This was before I started my tour business. So I got a job at the Plaza Hotel. They had a wine tasting room there at the time. This was even before Ellen Elfelt purchased it. And so I was working in there one afternoon, and up pulls this fleet of these beautiful sports cars, convertibles. They had these racks on the back of their cars, luggage racks. And they looked very unusual. They didn't look like anything from around there. And then these folks walked in and they were from the Netherlands. And they told me they had shipped their cars to Chicago and they were doing Route 66 to California. And of course, I gave them some samples of wine, and one guy bought a whole case. We were only doing New Mexico wines, so they were local wines. And I think he bought the green chili. And then off they took. But I was like, wow, this is really cool. I didn't know I'd see anything like that.
Yeah. Las Vegas, you mentioned, it got the old section, which is, 1840s, 1850s. The Santa Fe Trail's one of the main streets.
Right.
And then the newer section. Now, if I understand this correctly, for many years, there was actually like two different cities. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that is correct. And I can, start with a little bit of history for you if you want, which is, 1846, General Kearney, he stood on the Casa de Musica building, which is the Maze Hotel, and declared New Mexico was now part of the U.S. And the plaza is a beautiful big plaza. It's actually one of the largest ones in the Southwest for trade. And Santa Fe Trail did come down Bridge Street to the plaza. That's where they did all the trading. The plaza was like a key point, major stop along the trail. And it was a fortified plaza, they called it, so it could be barricaded. And then it went down went to South Pacific and on to Santa Fe. Well, then the railroad came to Las Vegas. That was in 1879, the Atchison, Topeka, Santa Fe Railroad. And of course, the Santa Fe Trail, ended at that point. They didn't need it with the train. And Las Vegas became a boom town. I mean, it was... At one point, the census of 1900 said Las Vegas was the largest city in New Mexico. So, unfortunately, it caused a split in the town because the railroad found land on the east side of town cheaper. The people on the west side, and they were mostly the Hispanic folks who had built their beautiful adobes and territorials, they thought that the railroad would build there. And they didn't. They got the land cheaper on the east side. And so the town became divided. We ended up having two mayors, one of East Las Vegas and one of West Las Vegas, two school systems, which still exist, two post offices, everything. It was two separate towns. It was East Las Vegas and West Las Vegas. And it wasn't till, and it was, well, by the way, it was divided by the Guyanas River. So there's that bridge that goes across the Guyanas River, and that's where the divide is. It wasn't until 1970 that the town became one. The mayors of both sides of town said, let's make this one city. They shook hands on the bridge. I don't know which mayor ended up being the mayor of the whole city, but that's what happened. So it's got quite an interesting history to have a small town like that, be divided.
Did Don Trinidad Romero, did he have a hand in why the land was cheaper on the south end, or where the railroad came through?
Well, I think, you know what? I think the folks on the west side maybe had thought, well, the railroad's coming, they're going to build over here, and they might have just put their price up too high. I know that there was a Baca, one of the Baca family, they built a hotel over there, and it became known as Baca's Folly because nobody ever went there because the railroad decided to buy the land on the east side of town. So that's all I know. I'm not really sure,
No.
but I think that and then like I said, it caused a big rift in the town for a long time. And the east side of town is totally different. So they call it Newtown. They had like a grid plan of
Yeah.
streets and sidewalks, populated with a lot of Europeans and American immigrants that came over. I mean, it was, like I said, a boom town. That's when the Malouf family from Lebanon came, and we bought their home, their Victorian, the Malouf house. They were very prosperous merchants in town. In fact, if it wasn't for all those immigrants that came, Las Vegas would never have boomed like it was because so many came over and started businesses. The Ilfields, and they built a building right next to the Plaza Hotel. German Jews, and anyway, and they built Victorians because it was what a lot of the folks coming from other parts of the U.S., like Chicago, it was the homes they were familiar with. They didn't want to live in adobes, apparently. So that's how we have those different types of architecture, which is really interesting.
Well, this is exact one reason, like I mentioned, that this program is about shining the spotlight on the American story. And Las Vegas really exemplifies that. The immigrants. And it's
Yes,
kind of funny. It's kind of humorous in a way, the story of immigrants to Las Vegas, because well, some of the first immigrants were Americans that were
yes,
showing up in a country that wasn't the United States.
exactly. That's right. So that's kind of interesting. That's what makes Las Vegas so unique to have such interesting history, having a town divided like that, and all the immigrants that came there to make, they became a boom town, a small town. And that was for about 20 years. And then, of course, lots of problems. The Great Depression, of course. Now, Las Vegas, to go back to why, and it was a boom town, but they were shipping out tons of wool. Las Vegas was also the wool capital of the United States. And I don't think a lot of people really knew that. But then also the railroad added additional lines on. It caused other New Mexico cities to be more competitive. Droughts happened, the Great Depression, 1930, and that kind of put an end to all the prosperity in Las Vegas. So it went into a slump for a while. And that's why I didn't have the money to tear down these old buildings. But like, as I said before, a twist of fate. We've got all these beautiful historic buildings now. And Las Vegas has also had one of the first electric trolleys. There was only 3 cities in the U.S. that had them, and one was, or I should say, the Southwest: Denver, Albuquerque, and Las Vegas. And that was in 1903. And then, of
Mm.
course, the Fred Harvey story. That's why a lot of people come to Las Vegas. Fred Harvey built his Castaneda Hotel on the railroad side, track side, and that was in 1898.
I am so glad that Alan Affeldt resurrected that property. Every time I went to Las Vegas, it just seemed to get worse and worse, and I was so worried about. It was just sad. I was really afraid that we were going to lose that property.
Oh,
That's an
yes.
amazing place.
It is an amazing place, and I felt the same way. In fact, when I had first moved there, and I'd walk around town, I knew nothing of Fred Harvey. Actually, I had lived in Kuwait, and then I had lived in Florida. There was no Fred Harvey there, and Milwaukee. I didn't know. I was younger then, so I really had never heard of Fred Harvey. But when I was on Railroad Avenue and I walked by that beautiful building, and it was abandoned at the time, I thought, wow, this is a gorgeous building. And I went to our historic preservation in town, which is on Bridge Street, and I started looking it up. I started doing research and read about Fred Harvey. And that's how I became a member of the board, actually. I became a member of the board at the Historic Preservation, and I started doing all their city tours, their fundraisers. The big ones were Places with a Pass and Holiday Home Tour. I put them together for them for about 6 years. So, and I put the Castaneda on. As soon as Alan came into town and he purchased the Castaneda, I contacted him. I said, can I please put the Castaneda Hotel on the Places with a Pass tour? And he agreed. So I got to really know that building well, and I loved it. It is such a fascinating building. And I almost was a little sad when he started tearing it apart and renovating it, because I just, the way it looked back in 1898 was the way it was still standing.
Yeah. It's when you start preserving a property like that, it becomes a real challenge to maintain historic authenticity in a profitable manner.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, profit does dictate these things, and it just makes it a real challenge. Alan does pretty well with balancing that, but that's a challenge and a half.
Well, he did tell me at one point, he said, listen, for the money I put into this hotel, I could have built a brand new hotel somewhere a lot cheaper, but he wanted to save a Fred Harvey hotel. There's not that many around anymore that have been saved. There's still that one in, is it not Portales, Clovis.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it's La Curva. It's in Clovis, and that's sitting abandoned right there on the railroad tracks. I don't know what's going to happen to that one. But as far as operating Fred Harvey hotels, we've only have the La Posada that Alan has in Arizona. Now the Castaneda, the La Fonda was never on the railroad tracks, but it was a Fred Harvey hotel. And then the Grand Canyon.
El Tovar.
Yeah, and that's it. We've got, there's some other places, but they're not operating hotels.
Right.
So I'm very happy that Ellen did save it, and it's beautiful. Unfortunately, there's no restaurant operating in there at the moment. The chef had left, and so hopefully he's going to get a new chef in there at some point.
Oh, that's okay. It would be nice to have a restaurant on site, but you've got that's another thing. Anybody who sees me or knows me knows you don't get in this kind of shape and not enjoy good diner food or restaurant food.
Did you go to Charlie's?
I did, but I tell you, Olivia's.
Oh yeah, Olivia's has moved now too. She's not on the plaza anymore.
No, it was over just up the hill from the Castaneda.
Well, yeah, it's on Grand. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when was the last time you were in Las Vegas, Jim?
Let's see, last fall.
So you do go back there pretty often.
Yeah, about every 18 months. I find an opportunity. I was there twice last year, and I find opportunities I find excuses to go out of my way to get there. You bet.
Well, we do too, and in fact, we know we're not living there anymore. But I was there in November, and we had moved last June actually, and then I went back in November, and now Bill and I are going to do another road trip, and we're going to go back there again this coming November. It's the Fred Harvey weekend actually,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And it's the first weekend in November, so we're going to do that. And yeah, I'll always go back to Las Vegas. It was such a big part of our lives.
Right.
I never got so involved in any community like I did in Las Vegas. I started, my tour business. I was on the board of historic preservation. Bill was, did the community economic development. And then you know what? We both got our real estate licenses too. And then I was selling homes there.
It's, and the other thing, of course, like you said, Las Vegas, in the years before the dawn of the 20th century, especially, it was before 1910, it was a real boom town. So it's not surprising, the celebrity association, but it still surprises people that aren't familiar with the town's history. All the famous people that have an association with that town.
Oh, well, and a lot of movies have been filmed there. There's so many reasons to come to Las Vegas. I tell people, you've got the beautiful Plaza Hotel. That was called the Belle of the Southwest, built in 1882. Of course, the Castaneda Hotel, the Fred Harvey Hotel, which is a big draw. We call them Fred heads that love to go to Fred Harvey
Yes.
hotels. And the El Fidel Hotel, that isn't talked about too much, but that's a beautiful historic hotel. That was built in 1921. Montezuma Castle, that was formerly the Montezuma Hotel. That's another big draw to Las Vegas. These were highlights for my tours. And I had the permission to go and do tours inside the United World College, which is housed in the Montezuma Castle. I don't think right now they're doing that. They're not letting anybody give tours there, but you've got the Dwan Light Sanctuary right there on the grounds. That's another beautiful place that the public can go to. You just drive to security and say you want to go to the Dwan Light Sanctuary, and they'll give you the key. You got to give them your driver's license, I think. But you go there, which is amazing. You've got the hot springs. That's another
Yes.
reason
Up
to
by
come to Las
Montezuma.
Vegas. You got those beautiful hot springs. And, the architecture. Okay, movie sites. So look at all the movies that have been filmed in Las Vegas, starting Easy Rider and Red Dawn, No Country for Old Men. They filmed Longmire there. Have you ever watched Longmire?
Yes, yes. I'm surprised Las Vegas has not become an absolute mecca for film companies.
Well, they do. I know, not as much as you think so, but yeah.
And there's, of course, we got a Doc Holliday connection, a Teddy Roosevelt connection.
Oh, yeah. Doc Holliday, Teddy Roosevelt. I'm going to tell you a quick story about that Red Dawn. It's a cult favorite, actually. When I was doing tours, somebody called me they were in Connecticut. They drove all the way to Las Vegas. He had bought these uniforms online that were worn in the film Red Dawn. He was obsessed with it. Came with his girlfriend and had to stand on the veranda, had the uniforms on, had one for his girlfriend. She just rolled her eyes and said, "I'm just doing it for him." Anyway, and this was pre-renovation too of the Castaneda, and I had to take photos of him. He was so excited. He wanted to see and hear about all the sites where they filmed Red Dawn. So, an Easy Rider, my gosh,
Yes.
look at that. The celebrities were in that movie too. So, it's pretty cool. I was actually, to tell you the truth, I was in 2 or 3 episodes of Longmire, by the way. I went for their auditions because they were, doing a big audition for the community, and they so they called me up, and I mean, I'm just in background, but it was still fun to be on
Sure.
a set, so.
You've definitely lived a life of adventures.
Well, that's true. And then talking about shows, the Ghost Adventures, they came to Las Vegas. They're on the Travel Channel. They filmed inside the Castaneda because of all the ghosts. They're paranormal investigators. Oh God, I gave so many tours to those paranormal investigators.
That's a big thing anymore. That's a
Oh,
huge
well,
thing.
and it was pre-renovation, of course. So they loved it. They loved the way it looked. And I remember they called me up and said, "We want you to give us a tour of the Castaneda, the Ghost Adventure show." Well, I didn't know I was going to be on. The cameras were on me, and I'm walking around the building, and it was cold, and there were puddles on the floor. And I said, "Aren't you going to mop this up?" And, "Oh, no, we want that. We want that ambiance of a deserted old hotel." And of course, I slipped in the water, and then they had to cut and start it over again. So you can Google that, and you can go to YouTube, I think, and you put in, Las Vegas ghost tours, and I think you can see the clip. They filmed at the Plaza as well. So that was a fun experience. Who would think, living in this little town of Las Vegas, I'd be in a couple TV shows. I met movie stars. I met Tommy Lee Jones when he was there filming No Country for Old Men. It's just like crazy. So,
Yeah, well, that shows the magic of Las Vegas too.
yes.
there's just something about that place that if you just park almost anywhere and go for a walk through the neighborhoods, and yes, it's still a modern community. You've got all the modern stores and shopping and everything, but you get downtown the plaza or around the Castaneda and just start walking. There's a feel about that place that is just so inviting. It's hard to
Yeah, it
describe.
kind of sucks you in. I always say that Las Vegas pulls you in. And that's another great reason to come. I mean, you
Oh,
can walk all over town. It
yeah.
is a walking town.
No.
So the only place that there aren't many sidewalks is on the old side of town, the west side. There are some sidewalks, but not as many as on the other side of town, on the new town. And then, of course, you've got the Rollins building, which is right across the street from the Casaneta, and that was the dormitory for the Harvey girls. And that's beautifully restored now. Tom
Oh,
Clayton, who lives in Las Vegas, he's our district attorney. He owned that building, or his family did, and he renovated it a few years back, and it's beautiful. And there's a lovely little restaurant in there now too.
and you've got a connection with the Rough Riders. That's kind of an
Oh,
obscure little chapter that people would be surprised by.
Oh, definitely. In fact, I don't know. There are talks that Teddy Roosevelt haunts the Castaneda. I've heard some stories, but yeah, Teddy Roosevelt and his Rough Riders. He was, I think, a colonel then at the time. He wasn't president. He came there in 1899 and stayed at the Castaneda. Had a Rough Rider reunion. In fact, I have a poster here at home. I found it in a museum in Raton, and it said special train Las Vegas in return, Saturday, June 24th, 1899. Teddy Roosevelt. I asked them at the museum, could I please have a copy of this? Because I'm on the board of the Historic Preservation Las Vegas. We'd love to have it. And they did, and they made a couple copies. So I have one. And that was when Teddy Roosevelt came for his reunion. They had a big parade. Um, it said on the poster bronco riding and roping and horse races, the charge up San Juan Hill and fireworks. It's just this very cool poster. So that was in 1899, and they stayed at the Castaneda with the Rough Riders. I think a lot of them were from the area. And then I also heard that Teddy Roosevelt camped right there in Lincoln Park. He wanted to have a couple nights out where he could, I guess, drink and smoke and have a good time with his Rough Riders and keep it, instead of staying in the hotel. I also heard a really funny story, and, these are folklores, but actually the owner of the current building on the plaza, which is called the Veeder building, another beautiful old building built in the 1800s. And actually that's where they filmed Longmire. The Longmire office is in the Veeder building. And if you go back to Las Vegas, have you seen the front door there where it says, it talks about, well, I think it's really not in the movie. It's filmed in where? North Dakota or somewhere, not really filmed in Las Vegas. I forget where actually they say it's filmed. But anyway, they filmed it in Las Vegas, and it says so on the front door. People stand there and have their picture taken. The office was upstairs. Well, upstairs also is this amazing bathroom in that building. Marble with a huge porcelain tub in the center of the bathroom. And the story is Teddy Roosevelt, when he came, knew Mr. Veeder and said he wanted to take a really proper bath. He didn't have a good bathtub at the Castaneda, and took a bath there in that bathtub. I would too if I was him, because I'm telling you, it's a fabulous bathroom and bathtub. Anyway, there's a lot of funny stories I hear about, whether they're all true or not, I don't know.
Well, folklore and legend is it's kind of like here we're near Kingman. There's the legend has been told so often it's now quoted as truth that Clark Gable and Carol Lombard honeymooned at the Oatman Hotel.
Oh,
It,
okay.
it didn't happen, but
Okay.
it was a promotional thing that started in the 1960s, and it stuck. And it's the legends and the stories are that's a big part of the adventure of the road trip. Hey, can I ask how you mentioned General Kearney downtown in the 1840s there by the plaza?
Right.
Uh, how old is Las Vegas? When was the first buildings really built? Is
Well, 1835, I believe that's when Las Vegas was founded, and they named it the Meadows. That's the English for Las Vegas. Las Vegas is Spanish for the Meadows. So it was 1835, and some of those buildings there on the plaza, like where General Kearney stood, that one is 1846. So it's one of the oldest buildings on the plaza. And I think some of the oldest buildings are on the plaza. So that is, and there's a row of them, several different storefronts, and the very as opposite from the plaza is Romero Mansion, which is now a store, and I don't know if you saw it when you were there last time, called Weave and Gather. It's absolutely beautiful store. It was my favorite store when I lived there. They sell carpets and jewelry and soaps and clothing, all kinds of stuff. They moved there from Colorado, moved to Las Vegas, and they lease it. So that building was the Romero Mansion, and also interesting building. It's been totally renovated. And that one also was built in that early 1800s. So all in that same time frame, 1840s, before the railroad came. So
I got the whole story. I know a little bit about Romero, Don Trinidad Romero, Romeroville, and there's another character, just a fascinating fellow that just somehow slipped through the cracks of history, and his story definitely should be told at some point.
yeah, and there's a lot of history I don't know. I don't ever claim to be an historian. I'll tell you who I feel is an historian in Las Vegas, and that's Elmo Baca. He gave me information when I started my tours. I went with him and I sat down and I said, Elmo, tell me some stuff about the plaza and some of these buildings, and he owns the movie theater in town.
The
That's
one
called
downtown.
yeah, right on Bridge Street. It's called the
Mhm.
Baca Building. And he owns that building, and he put that movie theater in there.
Oh gosh, that's what 1930s.
Oh, that building is older than that. The Baca Building has got to be, I believe that's also in the 1800s.
Oh really?
Yeah. He totally renovated it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have the exact date of that building on top of my head, but yes, it's an old building. It has that beautiful, some of that beautiful scrolling work on the building, just like the plaza and what do they call that Renaissance revival? I think.
It's so fascinating, the little tidbits you find. And I love doing this when I'm in Europe or when I'm in Las Vegas or any place. Looking at the old buildings, the little architectural details, the little scroll work, the doorknobs, the little intricacies. And
Yes.
you find things in Las Vegas, like down there on Bridge Street. I was so surprised to see that little plaque about, was it Coronado crossed here down
Oh
on the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
bridge. Little things like that just bring you up short, and you just think, my gosh, the history here.
Yeah, I know. I wish the city would do a little bit more about putting signage up, like this is where Billy the Kid slept, or this is where actually Doc Holliday's Tavern or his bar is on Lincoln Street. It still sits there. There's no signage up, but I know that from reading about where it was, and it's empty. There's no business in it, but it's right on Lincoln, and Lincoln dead ends right at the Railroad Avenue, and it's in a little row of buildings there, and I think it's painted bright orange, salmon color or something, and that was Doc Holliday's Tavern.
I need to pitch an idea to him. I was very privileged. Was still working on it, but a couple of years ago we unveiled a narrated, self-guided historic district walking tour using QR codes, and
Mm-hmm.
it was designed to be a virtual tour with historic photos, audio narration, all of this. So that way, if you were in jail but had internet access, you could still tour Kingman. But it was designed as a physical tour to encourage foot traffic. And yeah,
Well, someone on our board at one point did get that started, and the city was going to pay for it. I don't know what happened now. It sort of seemed to go away. But there was somebody that actually he owns a building on Bridge Street. He and his wife. That's Frank and Jan. They own a building. They own that. It's a coffee shop now. God, what's the name of it? It is sitting right there next to the theater, next to Elmo Baca's theater. And Bill, do you remember the name of that coffee shop? It just escapes my mind at the moment. Anyway, he was on the board and he did design that. And he invested into that beautiful, beautiful building and renovated it. And there's like I said, a coffee shop and an event space. So there are people that had those ideas, but I
yes.
just don't know where it went.
Oh, it's so hard. And, we and I want to encourage the people in Las Vegas as well as anybody else listening that has these ideas. We unveiled that downtown walking tour, National Road Trip Day 2022. And we initially started proposing it, pitching it, trying to get help in 2014. So sometimes these things, well, they just don't happen overnight.
No, and you're right. And I think the Las Vegas can be a little slow and stuff like that.
Most communities are. They
Yeah.
need people. They need passionate people like yourself and Bill, and that can. Your Bill and you both had this the ability to foster development of a sense of community and community purpose, and that's really the foundation for all historic preservation. For any of this, is having that sense of community and community purpose.
Well,
And
thank you. Yeah, and I agree. It's wonderful to have that and to be in a community. And Las Vegas does have a great community. Wonderful people living there. That's part of the reason I like to go back to see some of my friends.
is the drive-in theater still operational?
Yes, yes, that's another thing to mention. That is one of the that's the only one in New Mexico, and I believe is should be operating now. Of course, it closes in the fall, and then it
Yes.
opens up again in the summer. So, and a fun way to come to Las Vegas if you have access, go take the Southwest Chief,
Yes.
and that's another people that are staying at La Posada and Winslow. I used to have a lot of them coming over on tours. They'd leave their car over there in Winslow if they were driving, and then they'd get on the train to Las Vegas, and then I'd give them a tour. They stay at the Castaneda, and they could walk around town. I believe there's an Uber driver there now. We didn't have any taxi or anything for a long time. The Meta City Transportation, but they don't run on weekends. You have to make reservations ahead of time. But I believe there's an Uber driver now, so that helps. But yeah, taking the train is always fun. We've done
Yeah.
that a couple times. Went to La Posada on the train.
There's some associates of mine that in Needles, California,
Oh
and
yeah.
every year for the Fred Harvey get-togethers in Las Vegas, they take the train from Needles, California. Her husband gives tours at the old El Garces Harvey
Oh
complex.
yes, yes. I've heard of it. I've never seen it. I
There's
believe Alan Alfelt worked on that for a while.
Yeah, that's a long, complicated story, a sore spot.
Yeah.
I learned early, don't mention that to Alan. He told me that he'd kick me if I mentioned that again. So yeah, but if people get a chance, and you're on a road trip, not just Route 66, because you've got I-25, you've got Highway 56 just up the road. Uh, there's so many ways to get to Las Vegas, and there's no wrong way to get there. But I just highly recommend a trip to Las Vegas. I think it should be a destination city.
I totally agree. And and Las Vegas has had its little share of problems. We had that terrible fire, and then the floods, and what's happening all over the country now. It seems. Um, so, but it always comes back, and it's just this, as you say, a really magical place. Lots to do, even if you don't even want to tour and architecture, movie sites, and ghost tours and all those. But you've got outdoor activities. You've got Story Lake, hiking, biking. The wildlife refuge is there. Fort Union in Watros, which isn't far away. That's always a cool place to go.
Pecos National Historic Park's just down the
Yes,
road.
that's another great place to go. And then Las Vegas has got several lovely art galleries, antique stores, and you're talking about food. Well, of course, I always say Charlie's is the local favorite, but yes, Olivia's is great. The Plaza has a new restaurant in there called the Plaza Grill. The Skillet, Dick's is good. There's a lot of them. So
That right there is another reason to go to Las Vegas. When you travel on some of the old two-lane highways now, and you find small rural communities, they have no restaurants. They literally have a Denny's, they have chain restaurants or fast food, but they do not have diners anymore. These small little towns
mhm.
In Las Vegas, you've got a plethora of good old fashioned mom and pop type diners and restaurants.
Well,
Another
you're
reason to
right.
be there.
And no chains, no chain. And then there's another little place, and I don't know if you've ever been there, kind of hidden. It's not a restaurant, it's a bakery called Pedro's. It's run by a Mexican family. They have the most amazing empanadas, fruit filled empanadas. Oh my God. As soon as I go back to Vegas, I stop there. Cinnamon bread, or they call it monkey bread. They make their own handmade tortillas. Wonderful bakery there. And that sits right there on Grand Avenue. Oh, across from Buffalo Hall. Have you seen that new restaurant right on Grand?
No, no, I have
Oh,
not.
that's a new one. That was an old building that sat there, dilapidated, and some local guy in town, he bought it and renovated it and turned it into a huge restaurant. It's called Buffalo Hall. It has oh, it has so many things to do inside, actually. Um, and great food, barbecue. He has a big smoker outside. So he makes barbecue pork and
Oh,
brisket, and yeah, you have to go in there. That they have
that
some pretty
sounds
good barbecue food.
ah. Kathleen, I want to thank you for taking time from your family and your schedule today to do this. Uh, I've been wanting to encourage people to get to Las Vegas for quite some time. I sneak it into a lot of the articles and magazines, articles and books that I write as recommended detours, side trips. And I just want to thank you for your dedication, what you and Bill both did for Las Vegas and still do for Las Vegas. And I want to thank you for taking time this morning to join me and see if we
Oh,
can inspire a road trip or two.
yeah, no problem. I didn't even touch on some things, I'm sure. And the Indian detours. My uniform when I did tours, I dressed as a courier. And then I
Mm.
had 5 ladies that dressed as Harvey girls. So that was a lot of fun as well. So, and the big Indian detours 100th anniversary is coming up next year. So,
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, God, we've that would. Oh, now we just sparked a whole another discussion here. Next year, a town like Las Vegas. Oh my gosh, the 100th anniversary of the Indian tours, the 250th anniversary of the United States, the 100th anniversary of Route 66. I see a party.
yeah, I know. And the first Harvey car left the Casaneda Hotel in May of 1926. People think that it was only Santa Fe, but actually the first I have an old black and white film I found on the internet that is a little film done by Hunter Clarkson, who actually is the one who got the Indian detour started. He had worked for Harvey, and it shows it's really a really cool little film showing people get off the train and walking into the Casaneta, and then in the morning getting into the Harvey cars and doing a 3-day 300-mile trip all along the way, stopping in Pecos and other places, Taos. So it's very fun. Yeah, so that's another whole thing to talk about.
Yes, ma'am. God bless, Kathleen. Thank you so very much for doing this. You got me excited again. Like say, my recent trip to Tulsa was a whirlwind trip, so I didn't have time to make the loop. But I was there last fall. We stayed overnight last fall, and in June of last year, I did a lunch stop in Las Vegas. But I try to get there at least once a year, 18 months. I have to have a fix at least every 18 months.
Yeah, and get some good tortillas too.
I've never had a bad meal ever
No.
in Las Vegas.
No, I know what you mean. So yeah, I'm looking forward to doing that. And Charlie's has got a tortilla machine in there. So when we go there, we'll buy a bunch of tortillas and bring them to our friends and bring them even back here where, so yeah, it's you can't, some of that food you just can't find anywhere else.
No, New Mexico food is unique,
Yes.
and it's different. And the food in Las Vegas is even more unique, a unique version of unique New Mexican food.
Yeah, that's true. Well, yeah, it was great talking to you, Jim. And yeah, I look forward to hearing about what maybe you're going to be doing for the 100th anniversary. You got as you say, the what is Route 66 and Indian detours and lots of stuff coming up.
Oh yes, indeed, lots and lots of things. Well, thank you again. Please say hello to Bill for me.
I will. I'll do that.
He was
Yes.
very patient with me as we went back and forth trying to get a move that just didn't happen. But
Yeah.
and I just always enjoyed visiting with Bill.
Well, good. I will tell him.
Thank
I'll
you.
send greetings. Thanks, Jim.
You bet, my friend. Bye-bye.
Oh, hey, could I do one thing?
Yes, ma'am.
Did I shout out to Kathy Weir, Fred
Yes.
Harvey?
Please do.
Yeah, Mary Coulter, Fred Harvey, Mary Coulter fan club page on Facebook. Kathy Weir is a big promoter of Las Vegas, so I had to do a shout out to her.
By all means, we have to give credit where credit's due.
Yes.
And the people who just quietly work behind the scenes to keep this stuff alive, they're priceless.
Yes. So she does a great job in promoting a lot of different places, but Las Vegas is special to her too. So, all right. Well, great. I'm glad I got that in. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kathy. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Wasn't that great? We're going to have next week. What we're going to do, we're going to go to Missouri. And if you're traveling from California, well, Las Vegas is on your way. Next week, we're going to talk to Elizabeth Olwig with the Missouri Route 66 Association. And we're going to do a couple things with we're going to not only talk about Route 66 in Missouri, Route 66 Centennial, but we're going to get a little bit of a younger person's perspective. How do we keep Route 66 alive so people are celebrating the highway's bicentennial? How do we make all of this Las Vegas historic preservation, Route 66? How do we make it relevant for a new generation? And Elizabeth's very articulate and knowledgeable on these things, and she's going to provide a pretty good perspective, I think, on this. I've enjoyed our conversations with her immensely. And the following week, July 27th, if you've ever thought of having a midlife crisis or a midlife career change, I got a story for you. You're going to really like this. We're going to have a Jen with us, and she has opened a bicycle museum and bicycle rental store on Route 66 in a refurbished 1930s gas station in Kingman. And she has gone through life and done some different things. Like she was a professional clown. She worked for some marijuana dispensaries in Amsterdam. She had a marketing company. Very different career choices. And now she's renting bicycles on Route 66. We'll have that coming up. And then I'm really excited. August 3rd, Anthony Arno will be joining us. You might know him through his Route 66 podcast. But he's also got a Route 66 scholarship program. Education is very, very important to Anthony. And he's launched a pretty, it's a visionary idea, this podcast, and linking it to the scholarship. I think you're going to find that one of interest too. And, another thought on your road trips. I mentioned Highway 104 from Tucumcari. You could make a great loop drive out of this, going from Las Vegas, Santa Rosa, Tucumcari, back to Las Vegas. But Tucumcari, you've got the Mesalands Community College Dinosaur Museum. And of course, the magical Roadrunner Lodge. David Brenner has. I really don't even know how to put this, but he has created an opportunity for true time travel without sacrificing modern amenities at the Roadrunner Lodge. And speaking of time capsules in your adventures and travels, I've got a couple others I can throw out there for you. The Enchanted Trails Trading Post and RV Park down out of Albuquerque, along Route 66 at the top of 9 Mile Hill. Vicky Ashcraft, she eats, drinks, and sleeps Route 66 and helping people have a great adventure. This is a modern RV park and with a 1940s trading post. She's got quite a display of vintage travel trailers and Hudson automobiles. And she's the president of the Route 66 Association in New Mexico, as well as one of the founding members of the New Mexico Route 66 Alliance. So like me, she's pretty good at telling people where to go. And if you're headed east, well, there's Angela Moreland out in McLean, Texas. She's done a fantastic job with the 1950s Cactus Inn Motel, and she is also working on some downtown projects. That's really interesting. And we'd be very remiss if we didn't talk about Miss Connie Eccles at the Wagon Wheel Motel in Cuba, Missouri. And speaking of anniversaries, well, next year is the 90th anniversary at the Wagon Wheel Motel. That's the oldest continuously operated motel on Route 66. And then we have, if you're worried about planning a road trip, taking a road trip, I'm really selective on who I work with, and I've got some companies I can highly recommend. Austin Coop with Two Lane America, Sam Murray at Gilligan's Route 66 Tours, and Stephen Disbrow and his wife Chantel at Route Trip USA. They all can put together a top-notch road trip experience for you. I want to thank everybody who joined us this morning. I'm just really grateful to Kathy for taking time today. Sharing a bit about Las Vegas. And like she said, we just scratched the surface on what makes this town unique and special. I mean, an operating drive-in theater. Just think about it. The blending that you can find there. Well, my friends, if you don't have any questions, I will let you go. I'll have this published later this afternoon on our web Podbean-based website. We also have an embedded player on the Jim Hinckley's America website and Kingman Tours, kingman.tours. If you're a website developer, you'd like an embedded player, we can provide you with a code for that. I'll also do a blog post probably in the next week about Las Vegas, New Mexico. I have some pictures for you and some of the day trips, some of the things that you can see in and around Las Vegas. And like I say, jump on Amtrak, make it an adventure. You got a direct shot even from Chicago to Las Vegas. So no reason not to make that a pit stop. Does anyone have any questions or thoughts before I bid everyone adios this morning? Got some great folks with us this morning. I see that Keith's with us and Good morning, Miss Jessica. I'm always glad to see you joining us. And Denny Gibson, I don't know if you've had experience with Las Vegas. I know probably have through your work with the National Old Trails Road. Your fascination with that has taken you through there. Because, of course, we didn't even mention Edsel Ford's connection with Las Vegas or Emily Post. Well, get to that next time. Margaret, good morning. Hope things are doing well for you in Michigan today. Well, my friends, I will bid everyone adios. We'll send you out with our little music from my friends at the Road Crew, roadcrew66.com. Like I say, if you need a road trip inspiring tune or a theme song for your road trip to Las Vegas, check out roadcrew66.com. Till we meet again, my friends. Adios.
Say hello to a new friend on an old road. Take a 2-lane trip of memories into mysteries unknown. Come along for the ride. Jim Hinckley's America. Jim Hinckley's America.